Right.
You know, sort of, is it Blue Monday in mid-Jan?
Yeah, right.
Have a frostathon. It will perk you up a treat.
Do you think?
100%.
Oh, I might do that.
Yeah.
I need a bit of perking up as well.
Yeah. Do you watch some of your own stuff? Do you enjoy that?
I try not to.
Yeah, I'd be the same.
It's just I'm too critical of it, and then I want to do it all again, which I can't do. So
I did a bit of a Reddit deep dive as well.
I've never been on Reddit, so
Have you not?
Never. I just hear bad things. So
you do get some nuggets.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently, you said at one point your best smelling cast member was Pierce Brosnan.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I can believe that.
yeah, he smelled like a rich man.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever been in like a helicopter or a yacht, it's like he just smelled like wealth,
Right.
but like Italian wealth.
Yeah.
He
Nice.
smelled so good.
I don't think he's ever smelled bad.
No, I don't think. I think just as a man, naturally, his odor is just Bond. But where was he? I met I met him in BA's like first class lounge, and he was reading the Times, and he fucking looked great, and we had a cuddle, and he just smelled lovely. And I was like, this is great.
That is
Now I
pretty cool.
know what it's like to be in a Ferrari.
Yeah, yeah. And somebody else put underneath, completely separate, and this was actually before your latest book came out.
Yes.
I'm not going to say your cooking book because it's a memoir
some
of
recipes,
recipes and experiences. But somebody said he should have his own cooking show. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love that.
I have been thinking about it, and there's lots of possibilities now since releasing a book with recipes. But it's just trying to find the right thing and how to tie. You know what? I'm a big fan of Bob Mortimer and Paul Whitehouse and the way they do their show. And I think if we can find something like that where we can just cook some food and have a laugh and talk about shit and be honest, and that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And the memories behind it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but also it's like what Bob and Paul have done is they found that real beautiful kind of sweet spot where it's just two men who really like each other, and we join to see them get on. Which I think is nice, and it's quite. We haven't got much of it these days in terms of. Because what we've been taught to watch over the last 10 years is, hey, let's hate these people because they're fucking dicks. Let's all join in hating these people, and this is
Build them up, bring them down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is completely the opposite, and it's quite nice.
You and Pegg could do that.
I left a gap there for the coffee to come in. Thank you so much. Yeah, but I mean, Pegg's not a cook. He's not. This is not his thing. He'd not be his thing,
Maybe that's part of it. You've got to persuade him. You've got to encourage him.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we need to find. That who would be my White House?
I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who want to be.
I think there's plenty. Maybe we could have a White House of the week. Maybe Paul Whitehouse.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, they could do it. That'd be cool. I mentioned I've been reading your book, and part 2 is at the time in your life where you're in Israel.
Yeah.
Kibbutz.
Yes.
And quite an amazing period, actually. Almost 20 months you were out.
Yeah, really weird.
Yeah, late teens, about 20-ish?
Yeah, I got there when I was 18, and I had my 19th birthday and my 20th birthday there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those things. Sometimes when you tell people, they kind of disbelieve it in terms of, we were in a war. It was fucking really weird and frightening, But I think it's only in the last 20 years when you actually are old enough to look back and think, fucking hell, that was really close. That was, and obviously because of the person you are, then people don't believe it anyway. So maybe that's all right. You know what I mean? There
was a certain section where you mentioned about being in a rut, but you were happy that you were there because you were busy, and I think it was a form of escapism.
Yeah.
And obviously you're here today to talk about your new film, Getaway, on Sky
Yeah.
Cinema in early Jan. I've watched it twice.
Great.
Part of my Frostathon.
Okay,
Really
good.
enjoyed it. Really, really good.
Okay.
But I thought over 20 years now in Hollywood, and reading about you at that point in your life back in Israel, over 30, is it around 30? Yeah, we're over 30 years ago.
20.
What would Nick Frost at that point think of where you are now?
They're completely different people.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm still that little child inside me.
We all have that, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
But but it's just a completely different
Well, that's the thing.
person.
Yeah.
You know, I never would have imagined. I mean, it's yeah. I think okay. Let me try to think. I don't think I would have imagined that I could have ever been so brave as to do something that makes me feel shit and frightened and stick with it for so long and to be successful at it. You know, I don't think I would have, because I didn't think I was brave then as a kid. You know, I think now in hindsight, yeah, I really was, but.
Well, even going there was quite brave, actually.
It's on my own.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. You know, it's not like you're going to. I mean, if my kids now, I mean, they're still kids, but if one of them comes to me and says, "Hey, we're going to go to Greece for a week," I'd be fucking livid. Let alone we're off to Palestine. You're going to go and live on the Lebanese border for 2 years. Yeah, I'd be kind of
pretty wild.
mad.
It was interesting. There was a bit where you mentioned about at Christmas time watching 3 Bond films in a row.
Yeah.
And again, like, you know, fast forward, you've had two Bonds.
Yeah, right.
You know, in the Cornetto Trilogy, which is quite extraordinary.
And
funny how life works like that.
We worked with Daniel Craig in Tintin.
Yeah.
Which was lovely. Yeah, I mean, because obviously the Israelis worked on Christmas Day, but we all got the day off, which was great. And they said, "What films do you want to watch?" And we all said Bond. So we lay around drinking vodka at 9 a.m. watching 3 Bonds back to back. There were like 40 of us. We all brought our duvets to the TV room and just lay around smoking, because you could smoke inside.
Yeah.
And drinking vodka. It was.
And watching Bond sounds pretty good.
Watching Bond, yeah, it was great. It's a great Christmas, and it snowed. It's,
oh really?
Because we're up in the mountains, so
oh, of course, yeah,
on
the
Lebanese border, we're like 5,000-6,000 feet above sea level, so it snowed quite a lot, which was great because when it snowed, we all got chips.
Oh, okay.
If it snowed, the people made chips.
Nice.
You could have chips. It was amazing.
I've been reading about how you were sneaking into it was one of the building. I think was it the
in the
plastic building, plastics factory, and you would sneak underneath, and you found a way to get in and access the food. That was
went on for a while too. There was a real to and fro between me doing a crime and them
slowly locking each door to prevent whoever was doing it.
Because the plastic factory was. You did lots of different jobs, right? So you usually did it with 50 other people.
Did like apples,
packing apples or picking apples, but plastics was a massive fucking building with. I was just sat at this giant machine, and it would make this noise, and it would turn. And you'd put a tiny little valve onto the machine, and it would turn, and then you'd put a tiny little, and that would be your work for 6 hours. And the only thing you had was there was a little counter which showed you how many you did per minute. So then I was just constantly trying to break that every minute. And eventually you can't. You try different versions of the job to see, is this more efficient?
Yeah.
But yeah, so
it did sound quite mind-numbingly boring.
It was terrible. It was terrible. There was a guy on kibbutz with me who had a Walkman. So because he worked at night, he said, "Oh, you can, you listen to tapes and stuff." But the good thing about working in the plastics factory is it had a kitchen, a proper kitchen with a fridge, which was full of fucking ham and cheese and just great food. And that's what you could have. So you could make yourself omelets or something. And so every week on the kibbutz, the volunteers had the pub. They opened the pub up. So we just got fucking hammered on a Friday. And walking back past the plastic factory one night, I thought, I can go and have a sandwich. So it's not
locked.
It's not locked. I just fucking breezed in. There was no one there. I made a sandwich, a fucking big ham and cheese sandwich. I think what fucked it the most is I started to get a bit boastful around the other volunteers, and then they started to rob the place too. But they weren't like a charming rogue gentleman thief like me. They just kind of fucked
Pure
it
scavengers.
up. Yeah. There was art in my thievery, I think.
Yeah. One of the thoughts, actually, before I asked the first plot twist question, was that experience, but even growing up before there, and sort of the characters that you meet and how it makes sense how that would inform your comedy.
Right.
Like John Sullivan writing Only Fools, he met those characters, he'd seen them, and that's how he helped formulate these ideas. And an amazing show.
Yeah.
And that kind of, I don't know if you feel the same way, but reading the book, that kind of felt like the same thing, that you were meeting these incredible people, a variation of people.
Yeah.
That can only creatively inform your writing. And
Yeah, I guess. But I think you have to be responsible for what you show people in terms of not being too fucking down, or, you know, because if it was up to me, they would all be fucking alcoholics who lost their parents and they're fucking sad and they take drugs and want to kill themselves all the time. But you, as a writer, I think you have, yes, of course, acknowledge all that, but it can't just be that. You know, I think every one of these sad, lonely, broken people are also fucking hilarious and
Absolutely.
and giving and generous, and, you know, I think my responsibility as a writer is to show human beings, right, that other human beings can watch and think, oh, I get that, because I'm a bit like that, or I've done that, or I know someone who's done that. But then once you start moving into the kind of darker element of the human condition, then your audience, I guess, comes slightly. Your numbers are slightly lessened because not everyone knows that. You know? But then that's where the truth is. I think that's where the beauty for me lies in writing, is to write people that I know. And I think, you know, me and Edgar and Simon, when we make films, we've always just made it for us. And I think that's what I've learned about writing over the last kind of 5 or 6 years is just write it for me. I'm writing it for me, and
people seem to like it.
Yeah. You know, that's another thing in terms of getting older and growing up and starting to believe in yourself a little bit more, which I fucking didn't do until I was like in my late 40s, you know, in terms of just being brave enough to get out there on my own and think, yeah, fuck it. Just, if you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, okay, let's try again. Let's do something else. Come, you know. So, yeah, I'm enjoying that element of being older, because it's like,
I like that you got to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never thought that was a place you'd get to. I thought, well, you were this and you stay as that, and then that's it.
I feel like the older you get, though, you realise that there's no rules.
No, yeah. And also the older you get to, for me as a writer and someone who makes films and stuff, is like, you realise that people like you, you know, and your stuff too, and you have a voice and people are glad to hear it, you know. And there's also that weird thing that if you just live long enough, people just take you seriously because you're 52. Do you know what I mean? You start getting, like, I got an award this year for like services to genre. It's like, I did fuck all. I just stayed alive and worked. It was that easy.
I think you're underselling it. But let me come on to the first plot twist.
Yeah.
So this is the main plot twist.
Okay.
So it is that sort of soul moment that can change your story. One moment that can, change your trajectory.
Yeah.
Frost, what's your plot twist?
Well, I think mine would have to be meeting Simon. You know, I think I've had a few since then, but none of them were as big as meeting Simon. You know, I think he just completely changed my life in terms of where I was headed and what I did and where I ended up. You know, I think I was a waiter. I was 21, 22, and I'd been in Israel. I came back and, you know, fell in love. So I followed a girl back, and then that didn't work. So I'm Rochelle. Yeah. So I'm just kind of on my jacks now, working in this restaurant, which I liked. I fucking loved it. I was good at it. And, you know, I think there's part of my, that's why I like living in Israel, because it's like 5 o'clock, you get up, then you work for 2 hours, then you have breakfast, and
it's routine.
It's routine.
Yeah, I struggle without it.
I'd be good in the army or in prison. And I think my life at that point was the same. So I had a routine and I liked it, and I was all right. I was good. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And then, you know, I met Simon, and he just pushed me from the start in terms of go and do stand-up comedy. Did that. I hated it. Okay, so let's do this. Let's write this. Let's, you know, come. So I toured with him a lot and like did his intros a lot and, you know, drove the car, and I just started to be.
It was opening your eyes, right?
Yeah, because it's like even as a child on my own, and I was on my own a lot as a kid, and the telly was like my best friend, and it was my parent, and I learned a lot from the television, a lot that I still retain today, and I'm thankful for the TV, and you know, I love it. I love the television, and if it's not on, there's an issue going on, and it fucking freaks me out because it's like someone's dead, someone's died. If the TV, because in my house, if the TV wasn't on, someone has died. But like, so I always used to watch films as a kid, like, because my parents, you know, when you're the child of alcoholic parents, then you can watch whatever the fuck you want because they're asleep. So I'd watch any film that was on, you know, and I fucking loved them. I love watching films, but I never understood that it was a thing. Like, people liked watching films, and there was a thing called cinema. It's like, what? But he changed all that, you know. I think he saw that was in me and said, "Hey, watch this film. Watch this. Let's watch Annie Hall together." So we watched Annie Hall, and I was like, "That's fucking amazing." And it's like, I started to realise that I understood film in terms of I got everything that was going on there. Excuse me.
But you understood each other as well.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Like more than
clearly, there was a sort of kindred. There was a connection there
Yeah.
that you don't always get.
No, I've never. I mean, I obviously have had that kind of connection, but we just spent 24 hours together all the time, and we fell in love. We literally fell in love, you know. And there were times, a lot of times, when we would not have to speak at all, and we would communicate, and we'd know exactly what the other were thinking, you know. And I just think, yeah, he took a big fucking lump of idiot clay, and you know, he gave me the confidence to also, you know, him and Jessica Hines, you know, they, after me doing Mike Watt as a character in the pub for fucking years, and amongst other idiot characters that I invented, you know, for them just to say, okay, so now you're going to come and do it on telly. It's like, that was a really big...
That's so cool, though.
Yeah, I fucking
really
hated it. I hated him for it. I was like, you fuck, now what? Because then it was even, you know, I didn't believe it. I was like, you know, I was still all about waitering and chatting up waitresses and smoking herb and just having a laugh, you know. And then suddenly adults are phoning me up to say, hey, so will you come to this studio and have a costume fitting on? And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? But not even realizing that this is happening. This is going to happen, you know. And I think it was only once we started to do a thing called a table read, where the whole cast and all the producers and all the heads of department come and sit and listen to the script out loud, you know, that it was like, oh, shit. It was really scary.
Yeah.
It was really scary. Because there's like 60 people there. And so, you know, in terms of knowing now what my brain makeup is like, it was like, this is fucked up for me to have to do this, you know. Because also the worst thing was, you go around the table at the beginning, the producer, Naira, stands up and says, hey guys, so thanks for coming, and let's just go around the table and just introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
And I was like here next to Simon, and so it went left, and I'm like, oh, I've got like 25 people to get through before I have to say who I am, you know. And then
You know it's coming.
yeah, and you can hear that squeaking in your ears as the pressure builds, you know, that
Yeah.
like a violin sting on a horror film, you know. And just fucking redding up, just so nervous. And so I mean, that hasn't really left me either in terms of...
I was going to say, how do you feel about that now?
Well, I had a read-through a couple of months ago, and obviously, yes, it's still nerve-wracking, but it's like, I've done 100 of these, I'm cool. You know, I know,
Yeah.
I'm confident enough to say, you know what, that feeling I have?
Yeah.
It's good, you're all right. It's not going to... But back then, it was like, I'm going to fucking die. What is this? You know? It was the same thing when I did stand-up. I did 12 gigs, and...
Did you enjoy any of them?
I did. The good ones were good. I did 6 which were amazing, and then 6 were really, really awful. But whichever they were, the feeling I had physically and emotionally after that was the same. And that was like, fucking, I had a migraine.
It's the adrenaline, right?
Just too much.
Yeah.
I just didn't know. And also, as me and Simon used to say, it's like I just wasn't good at it. I was good at the pub with these lot because I was just
Which is a comfort bubble as well, right?
easy. It was easy. I was the fucking funniest person in that pub. But then it's like, oh, so what do I try and how do I make that a stand-up routine? I just didn't know how to do it, Because also, me and Simon watched a lot of Big Night Out, Vic Reeves and Bob Morton. That was our fucking jam, So it's like, I'm going to try and do that and then just not be able to do it at all, Because they made it look easy. So
And also, like, doing impressions and stuff. I do that with friends. But
Yeah.
it's like, what's your own identity?
yeah,
That's
right.
it's easy to sort of pretend to
Yeah.
be this person, but actually.
But now I
what's your
recognise
humour?
as a 50-odd-year-old man, it's like that was I can see now that this was about me trying to people please and trying to make people like me because I thought for a long time that I was fairly unlikable as a human. So if I could build this elaborate persona where I was just fucking funny, I'll do anything to help you. You want a tenner? I've got a tenner. You can fucking have a tenner. What can I, and at the time, until recently, until I was 47, I was like, that's perfectly normal. And but it isn't. It was a way of, it's a way of
Was a coping
trying to
mechanism.
control people as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
And it is a coping mechanism, and I slip into it a lot, because I feel like even when people said, no, this is a defect of your character, I'm like, how can being a nice guy be? But it isn't being a nice guy. It's wanting desperately to be loved.
I get that. But you are a nice guy, though, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But it's. But when you're lying there at night, sometimes there's voices in you that say things that make you believe you're not a nice guy.
Yeah.
And it's about balancing all of that up and living a life where you can think, okay, I'm being honest and I'm trying to be the best me.
Do you feel like in the last few years you've got a better grip of that?
I'm aware of it.
Yes.
So I was never aware of it before, but now I'm aware of it. I can see it and try and fix it, or no, not fix it. Try and acknowledge it.
And also, I guess, be kinder to yourself.
Yeah,
Something
definitely.
That my own mental health,
100%.
definitely.
Yeah,
It's always about being berating myself or expecting more. It's like,
yeah,
sometimes you gotta have a balance. Be kinder.
yeah. That's another thing. Just being aware of what my expectations are of myself and other people. So I think that's made me feel a lot happier just when I can sit back and think, but that's what you think they should do. That's not necessarily what they should do.
Just on the plot twist answer with Simon, just what are in those early years when you're ideating and you're experimenting, what are the sort of flash images that come into your mind?
We used to wear a lot of blankets as capes. We did a lot of naughty magic. We took a lot of naughty magic, and we just fucking laughed constantly. And we, even now, 35 years on, there are games that we used to play then as kids that we still play now.
What'd you play?
Not games as in board games, but games as in things we used to say to each other that made us laugh, that we still say it now, like little songs we'd make up that we still, sometimes I'll say to my partner, if I were to text Simon this, he would text me this answer back.
Yeah.
And she says, go on then. And so we do it, just to see. And
That's
it's just
cool.
things that we did when we were young, that we still love and laugh at. And we just, we lived in Camden. We lived with great mates, and I hate to sound like a dick, but we just kind of had it large and laughed, and we created things, and we made little videos, and back then it just seemed innocent and just a group of people making films and sketches and hanging around, and someone turns up and they're funny, and you're there in your gang and you're smoking joints, and just great, amazing. But then you think, oh well, this was the bedding for what we went on to do, but we just didn't
You spaced and then
realise, that's we were doing.
Yeah. When did you like accept that this is the path, this is the career, I'm doing this?
Oh, never. I mean, I'm still doubtful now. Honestly, because it's even after Spaced, I went back to waitering because it was.
Did you?
I did, yeah, because it was. I think I got paid $9,000 for Spaced, which apparently was a lot of money back in the 1950s. But I just kind of fucked my waitering up at this place because I knew they phoned me and say you got, and I was like, fuck you. I left. I think I walked out on a Saturday night, which I
prime time.
Yeah, prime time. You just fucked them over. And then because I thought $9,000 was a lot of money. I thought that's going to last me a long time. But it was gone in, I think, about 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Because also it's like, I didn't realize you had to pay tax on earnings at that point. So then I think when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I then had like a huge tax bill that I was paying off for years because I spunked so much of it and didn't realize that I never thought about tax before that. I was aware. So I never once looked at my cash slip, like the pay. It was like, okay, I earned £130 that week, great. And I never looked at anything else. Just binned it. So yeah, it kind of went. That money went, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go back to another restaurant. So I had to find another. And even when Series 2 was Series 1, Series 2, whatever. But people would say, "Are you Mike from Spaced?" And I'd have to say, yeah. Would you like to see the dessert menu, maybe? So it was. I didn't think that.
It's tough on the ego, yeah.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit,
yeah.
Because you just think, I was really good in that, so surely now Hollywood just come calling, and that's what I'll do. But it just wasn't like that. I didn't even realize it would take 9 months to edit a TV show. I just thought, it's going to come out straight away.
Yeah,
well, it must be out this weekend, right? Because we finished it last week.
Yeah. We'll come back to some of that and that period of your life. But let's talk about your new film, Getaway.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was called Svalta, right?
It was called Svalta,
but now it's just changed to Getaway.
Yeah, Svalta it's a Swedish word that means like hunger or starvation.
Right.
And when the more experience you get at making films, the more collaborative I've become in terms of. I think when I was in my 40s, I would have been like, no, it's going to be called fucking Svalta, But when the people who have paid a lot of money to make the film come and say, hey, we think it will have a better chance internationally if you call it this, I'm more of in a mindset now where I'm like, okay, that's fine. I think if there's one thing I've learned making films, it's pick your battles.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because otherwise you're going to be fucking fighting all the time, and it's going to be really difficult. And people will.
You can't do it on your own.
You can't do it on your own. People will leave that experience and say, "He's nice, but it was fucking difficult. So we're going to now work with this person." So it is a collaborative effort, and it's not just me. It's all of us.
Are we doing spoilers?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay, well. I'm disappointed in myself, and it's quite befitting that we're on a show called Plot Twist.
Yes.
Because there is quite a big plot twist.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming.
Great, good.
Yeah, but I feel.
But you've watched it twice.
Yeah, and then I watched it again. I was like, "You're a Wally."
Because you see bits.
The speck of blood or the ketchup. Or your ketchup on your rain jacket beforehand. I should say it's the Smith family. They're going to Svalta.
Yeah.
This sort of retreat getaway.
The other one I really like, which is kind of small, is when Mats asks the family, "Hey, do you want to put your bags on the thing?" And they say, "No, we'll carry them." And the kids are like, Dad, you're such a dick." They take their own bags because it's full of knives.
Right. Okay.
Which we see later on.
Yeah.
So they keep all their weapons in that bag, and that's why he doesn't want Mats to take the bag.
Because when they arrive, you think, is Mats Larson who he says it? Obviously, he's an interesting character in himself.
Yeah.
But then who is that sort of? I'm expecting there's a serial killer on the island.
Yes.
And essentially, it's the Smiths.
Yeah.
That's the plot twist. Spoiler alert. Yeah. Also, the birds swirling. That was.
Well, that came from a true story. That came from a true story. Me and my partner we were on an island, because there is an island that we
Yeah.
would go to a lot, and it's not called Svalta, but I was there with my son, who was probably about 6 or 7 at the time, and we went for this lovely walk, the three of us, and he happened upon like a tern nest, like, or some kind of seabird which had put their nest in the undergrowth, and he happened to be a bit near to it, and so the mother bird just attacked him, and he didn't know what to do. He was really screaming, "Daddy, help me!" And I was
It's terrifying.
Yeah, you think, oh, it's just a little bird. What are you so frightened of? But yeah, he was really frightened. I was shouting like the worst advice, like, just stand still, which he didn't do at all. He just ran. So that's from that.
Well, I had flashbacks because I've had the same.
Yeah.
I went for a run in the New Forest a couple of years ago, late at night, and I'm finishing the run. I'm quite proud of myself because it was a tough one. And then suddenly this thing flies over the top of me. And for whatever reason, a very British sort of way, I just went, Jesus Christ, like that. Anyway, I watched it fly up onto the branch and I stopped. So I'm in its territory now.
Right.
Instead of just carrying on with the run, I was like, that was weird. Because it got really, I could feel it, like.
Yeah.
And then it swooped down.
What bird was it?
It was a buzzard.
Oh, wow, fucking hell.
Yeah, 6 times.
Yeah, right.
I swear to God, 6 times it swooped down to the point where I had to get in a press-up position on the road. And then this Mercedes, open-top Mercedes went past. I was like looking like possessed. You must have thought, what the...
Wearing a buzzard.
Yeah, so I could relate to that. That was quite scary. Yeah.
But if you were to just pause there are some cultures that would have just pulled its wing, like caught it and just pulled its wings off.
Probably.
We just wouldn't be terrified.
Yeah.
It's really British, I think, to be that terrified of a bird swooping in.
It's just because it was so peculiar.
Yeah.
Never, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got not a bone to pick, but you and Aisling Bea, loving couple.
Yes.
But you like to call each other mummy and daddy.
Yeah. Oh, it's fucking annoying. It is annoying. I think we started it.
It's fun. It is quite funny.
We laughed at it a lot, and then we just...
Bit icky?
Yeah, a little bit. We just went for it then.
Because it's not just like in front of the kids.
No, it's all the time.
It's actually all the time.
Yeah. But again, I think knowing what they are, that's an affectation. You know, that's
sure.
them playing the roles of Daddy and of Susan and Richard, you know.
It's the way he says it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the times we icked ourselves.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, fucking hell, can we not do it now? It's like, because there was a point, I think, where we did it at the end of every scene.
Yeah.
So we had to say, and Stefan was like, let's pick our moments.
Yeah. The story, where does it originate from? Because you mentioned that you've been on a Swedish island. Yeah. And I think I read somewhere else that people weren't necessarily so forthcoming. Is that sort of generally where the idea starts and builds out?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I mean, I was just there a long time, you know, over big holidays and summer and you know, Easter and Christmas and stuff like that. And yeah, I love the fact that I just love the island, first of all. It's a really special place, but it was interesting just seeing the people who they live there all the time, and they just aged. You know, I'd been going for 20 years, and they aged from their 50s into their kind of 80s and stuff. And they were exactly the same people, you know. They never I said, like, sometimes if I got off the ferry, like, one of the elders, one of the men might nod at me, but then he got, like, a dig in the ribs from his wife. Or I kind of love the fact that there was a real close-knit community who were... they questioned foreigners and outsiders, and I thought, oh, that's great. And you know, Swedes, like a lot of Scandinavians, they're
insular.
Yes, but they're quite serious people, you know, and it takes a lot to break them down or to make them laugh. But you can see once you do, then it's really it's in them, you know. It's just hidden slightly more than us, I think. And so I like the fact that at first these islanders seem like the enemy and seem very cruel and gruff and mean and cross, but you know what they invite on, or what's brought onto their island, which seems like, you know, super soft and
well, Richard seems like a big softie, really.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, what they invite in is the enemy. You know,
Yeah.
that's they were right from the get-go to fear everything they feared, you know, about the foreigners.
Because you got the boat crossing, and there's the crazed bald guy, and I think it's not going to be him, but maybe
Yes.
he's an accomplice or something.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't have expected it was the Smiths themselves.
No,
Which
exactly.
is great.
I mean, they're a lovely. You know, I really loved. Have you ever seen that Lars von Trier film, The Idiots?
No.
So it's an amazing film. It's about a group of, I guess you'd call them. They're like. I don't want to say hippies, but they're like hippies, but they're like avant-garde hippies, if you know what I mean. So what they do as a group is they all have assigned jobs, and they pretend to be terribly physically handicapped, so they can go and do days out at castles. And so one of them is the driver of the minibus, one of them is the tour leader, and then the others pretend to be terribly handicapped people. And they go for a day trip, and they keep in character through the whole day, and then you see them getting onto the minibus at the end, and as they drive off, they all come out of character. And then what they do is they spend a period of time talking about, okay, so what worked? What was good? What didn't work? You shouldn't do that because people might tell. And I just thought it was an amazing...
That completely makes sense.
Yeah. And so that's what the Smiths are doing. So that's a lot of the time when Richard's at the end talking about, you fucking got on my tits. Why you portray a bad human being? And, you know, the reason he says stuff like that is because they're not human. They're psychopaths, you know. And yes, physically they're human, but their psychopathy means that they can hide and pretend to be humans, but at the end of the day, they're unfeeling monsters, you know.
Because that was another sign, actually. Certain phrases would get him.
Right.
He just seemed totally the absolute big softy, and then there'd be some
what, like don't call daddy an egg.
Yeah.
So I want to know
so
what
Sam
happened.
is son or his son.
Yeah, Ian. So if we do another one, maybe we'll see what happened to Daddy why that upsets him so much. You know.
Yeah, we need to see that.
Yeah.
We'll come back to some of that. Plot twist person. So somebody that has unexpectedly been a source of friendship, inspiration. That's how we like to title it. Is there someone comes to mind?
What, other than Simon?
Other than Simon.
Oh my God. I don't know, maybe. I mean, but I'm not sure how much I want to talk about him, if I'm honest. But it was a guy called Frank who I met 5 years ago, and he changed my life essentially. I can't really. I don't want to say more than that. I want to be
no. You can keep it that
quite mystical, but
yeah.
And then 3 years ago he died as well. So it was a really weird. He was in my life for 2 years, but he completely changed my life, and then he died, which was really weird because, you know, sometimes, well, for me, I looked at this man who was he was a lot younger than me too, but I thought he was probably bulletproof and completely, you know, you just look at someone and you think, fucking hell, how can you, what makes you like
Who you are?
Who you are? What happened? You know. And then, he had a heart attack and died. So it was like, wow, that was so fucking weird. But also in terms of everything he had taught me, it was completely correct. You know, him dying was not like the perfect ending to my story with Frank, but I completely got it, you know. Sometimes we all meet people who pop in and change, and just even if it's not like, what's that thing when they talk about like an
sliding
asteroid?
door?
No, yeah, that's kind of cool, but like an asteroid's going to hit Earth, and
Okay.
don't try and blow it up because then like 1,000 asteroids will hit Earth. But they do that thing where you kind of get a little spaceship next to it, and it just propels it just a degree enough. That it will,
yes.
You know,
yes.
So I think I meet lots of those people who just steer me spiritually or sometimes physically, just a degree off the way I was going, you know.
I find those things extraordinary. Even I've got some friends that are recently married, kid, going through the whole, you know, new life experience together.
Yeah.
And they matched, and they were in different ends of London, and they matched on a dating site.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what are the chances of that?
Yeah.
And it's similar to like if you meet somebody like Simon comes into the Mexican restaurant and you end up, well, you didn't know, you met is it Cricklewood you met?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 142, I think.
Yeah.
So it's up there.
That's where we live. Yeah.
Yeah. So and you meet and you develop this rapport, but what are the chances that you could meet?
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
you suddenly, your whole life completely forever will change because of that. That's extraordinary.
I have a thing as well where, because I met his girlfriend first and we became friends, and she said, "Oh, you got to meet my boyfriend. You're going to really like him." And she was talking to him about me and stuff like that. But there are loads of times when people have said, "Hey, you got to meet this person. You're going to love him." And I meet him, I fucking hate him straight away, and then just hate them. I can't not hate them then for some. Edgar does that a few days. He said, "You got to meet this guy. You're going to love him. You're going to love him." Meet him. I'm like, this guy's a cunt. Yeah, so I think there have been lots of. I always thought what you were talking about then, to get a kind of device in a movie about, like, I don't know, a love story, and how close you came to your partner before you actually met. So you have a picture of like a map of London, and you're blue and she's red, and just to see how close you came physically to each other before you actually met.
It's happenstance. I think that those things are quite whether it's just, or maybe I will go out for that drink.
Right.
What
absolutely.
could come out of that is quite incredible.
Yeah.
When you start, you get heading towards like Shaun of the Dead in that period of your career. You alluded to it. You still didn't feel settled necessarily in the industry, but it must have been like exuberating. I mean, it's just incredible in that. I think those conversations you're having with Simon and talking about Bond, and then suddenly you got to all those Timothy Dalton, and that must have been so rewarding.
Yeah, I think Shaun of the Dead was the thing that made me fall in love with the thing I'm still in love with now in terms of making films, and just and not even necessarily the acting, because if I'm honest, maybe I'm not going to be honest, but I found it difficult to be around actory actors, because I'm not really a show off in terms of I can sing a song in front of 50 people and not care. That there's still a lot of cringe in that for me in terms of
we're on the same page.
Actors acting and being actory, but now I'm 23 years in. It's like, that's their process. You may not like it. That's their process, and that's fucking great, and that's fine. But as a result, it drove me nearer the crew in terms of, I'm going to sit here next to the camera team, and I want to know exactly what that lens does, and I want to know how to load film. What does this mean? And that is where I am still today. So if I work, I never leave to the set. I'm just with the camera team and the sound team and the props and doing Shaun, and that's what first made me love all that in terms of, yes, we are front of house in terms of the acting and the way we get treated, and cars coming to get us and people saying, "Do you want a cup of tea?" But everyone on that set is creative in one way or another, and it may not be forward facing, it may be technically, or fucking great focus pulls, or people that turn up at 5 o'clock to dress a set to look like a florist's. It's all creative, and I found that I really loved being surrounded by 200 creative people.
What's your favourite part of that? Even like with Getaway, like you wrote it.
Okay.
You've gone through a whole process of, like you say.
It's really specific, but my favourite part of making a film.
Go on.
Okay. So if a DOP, right, has got a camera and he's trying to kind of lens up a shot to see what's happening, or they do a take, the DOPs are so confident that their first assistant camera is going to be right on them that they hand the camera off and they don't even look. It's really weird, but when I see it, I love it. So they're doing this, and then they'll stop and they'll just do that, and they'll know that there's someone is just going to take that camera because it's worth 400 fucking £1,000.
Yeah, right.
Just to see them do that and hand it,
palm it back to somebody else.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. If I see that, specific. It's like, wow, that was great. And that's, as my...
Is it just probably the magic of movies?
Yeah, and just like...
being a kid watching it and then being there.
This is how it's... this is why I want my 13-year-old's not sure about what he wants to do, but I think I definitely want him to start at the bottom in a camera team and
Work
his way through, because you get to a point where, you know, you're just standing next to the DP waiting for him to hand that camera off, and I love it.
Next year, you've got lots going on. Obviously, this film comes out early January.
Yeah.
Then How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, in June. That comes out in June.
That's a big one.
And I made a film with Corinne Hardy, who did The Nun.
Oh, yeah.
I shot that a couple of years ago in Toronto, called The Whistle. And I think that'll be out next year as well.
Are you always ideating? Is there always something in the
definitely,
background where
yeah.
you're thinking, how can I do
Well,
this?
because I can't rely on... I can't now, because I finished the job on Friday. Now I haven't got any more acting until I don't know when. So I then turn into writer mode. So once Christmas is finished and New Year's finished, come January the 6th or whatever, then I'll start. I've got a second film. It's not the same as Getaway. It's a horror, but more a kind of traditional witch-based supernatural horror, but with a really nice family at the heart, without a mum, you know. And so I finished that, but I now need 2 or 3 weeks to just polish it and make it nice. Because I'm hoping if, you know, the people that I made Getaway with, we had a nice time, you know, we had a good time, and it was very, you know, we did it collaborative, and we have got a meeting in the book, so I'm hoping they're going to say, what do you want to do next? You know, that would be a dream for me, that they want to come and do another one.
Is the dream ticket when you're sort of leading that process, it's your own idea, or because I imagine something like How to Train Your Dragon, this big sort of feature film, it's a very different.
It is,
yeah.
But Dean, who directed it, also directed the animated version. He was, I mean, more so. Twice last year, I was really surprised by, because I did Skeleton Crew for Star Wars as well. And that was just voicing a robot, you know. But for that, and also for How to Train Your Dragon, I was kind of really blown away and impressed by the level of collaborativeness that they were. Because you'd be forgiven for just coming in and just doing it. And this is what's written. And especially for How to Train Your Dragon, it's like, well, this is what's gone before, so we're going to stick to that. But they weren't like that. But Skeleton Crew and How to, they were like, well, let's play around, let's do something, let's you know. And that was a really nice surprise to be given that responsibility, I guess.
I love that there's an openness in terms of what you could do.
Yeah,
that you've, through the work that you've done, you've earned this position where you can think, I could experiment with this. I could do that. That's a really privileged position to be, right? Yeah,
I think I'm really lucky in as much as, now bear in mind they're allowed to say no.
Of course,
we don't like that idea, but I think everything up to this point has at least given me not the right, but the chance to say, hey, sorry, can we try this? You know, and it may not work, or it might be good, and then that opens them up to say, oh, that was good. Well, why don't we now try this? You know, and you think, yeah, this is better. This is better than what was written. You know,
collaboration.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, is it better and funnier or than what was written? And if it is, let's use it. Let's not be churlish and say, well, it wasn't my idea, so fuck you. Right? I mean, but people are like that, and I get it.
Yeah, that's true. You never struck me as that kind of dude. Look, it's been a joy chatting to you.
Oh, thank you.
Honestly, and all the sort of the reading of your book and the Frostathon that I mentioned, it's been a joy. It really has.
There's another book. I'm gonna write a third.
You do another one?
Yeah, but because a lot of people were surprised that I didn't kind of talk about my career at all. So I've always wanted to write a book that younger actors could read, because I think when I work with younger actors, see when I say, okay, hang on. So because I spent 23 years near the camera, I kind of know what the lenses do and how big you look in frame, and you know,
technicalities of it.
Yeah, I think there's a big gap there in terms of young actors. Yeah, you're a fucking great actor, but if you're going to decide to not step on your marks, you're not going to be in focus. So that great take you did where you cried your eyes out, we can't use it. So, but it's going to be funny, and it's also going to be a biography, and I think my working title is "Why'd You Act That Way," and it will be about making films and all the films I've made, and
I'll definitely be an audience for it.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I mean the amount of sentiment and positive sentiment around the Cornetto trilogy and
Yeah.
all the projects that you've done.
Yeah,
I
agreed.
think there's a lot of love out there.
Yeah, it's nice. It's
really
nice.
lovely.
And I guess that comes from making it specifically for that audience rather than trying to make everyone.
Well, probably like you said, making it for yourselves.
Yeah, and there are people. There are at least 1,500 people like me around the world, which is good.
Not enough.
Not enough. No more. No, too much.
Nick Frost, has been a joy.
Thank you. Thank you
so much,
Cheers.
mate.